What's happening? Welcome back to Dynamic Character Productions. And yes, once again, another exit interview, but not really, because we have a finalist that is sitting with us this evening. I'm one of the hosts, Lauren, along with my co-host, McKenna, and the person that's been doing the exits all season long, Lily. But tonight, we are joined by our second place finisher, Celestina, which might add, you played an amazing game, and I was so excited you decided to play because it was your very first game.
She's another person I definitely hounded to play this game. I was like, Celestina play, because she was actually supposed to be in exile, but then at the last minute could not do it. So I definitely snatched her up for the mini.
Mini is more my style.
Clearly you made second place. That's pretty good for your first time.
Hey, I mean, we've got 2 second placers here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Well, starting off with your game, a really big thing pre-merge that I wanted to ask about was during the tribe swap, you were kind of voluntold, I think, by Tom, as Dak's person that they were nominating, and you got to choose, kind of pick and choose who went where. What were you thinking during that? Do you feel like you made the right move there? Was there something else you could have done? Break it down for us.
So I know, like, in watching the other interviews, people were wondering like what my strategy was, and honestly I didn't have a strategy. I was like not expecting to be chosen, so I was just looking at the screen. I was like, okay, this person's gonna be here, this person's here. I wasn't thinking about, oh, this person might have this relationship. I was just like, okay, this is my assigned task and I have to fulfill it. No strategy whatsoever. I know people would probably wish there was, but no.
Well, and it worked out for you because Steven picks Woda, so you get put on Dak, and you seem to kind of, well, the tribe kind of coasts through and wins immunity until the merge.
Yeah, I was like, oh, because I was thinking I was going to be on the other tribe. So I was like, oh, that's because when I first did the rock, paper, scissors thing, I was like, oh, I would prefer to, choose what tribe I'm on. But then Steven, was able to choose that. And so I was like, oh, darn it. So now I have to like do the whole picking thing, which at the end it turned out, because I was really shocked. I was like, oh, I'm going to be on the other. And I think I would have been fine on the other tribe because I don't know. I don't feel like doing the math right now, but I think we would have
been okay.
Okay.
You would have the numbers on either.
It would have been instead of Steven over there, it would have been everyone and Meredith. All Dak and Meredith.
Oh, okay.
Do you think you would have chosen Dak if Steven had picked the way you picked and you got to choose?
You would have stayed on that same Dak 2.0. Did you like the people on Dak 2.0?
Yeah, I probably would have stayed with that one. Yeah.
So your team kind of crushes all the competitions and you get to the merge. What were you thinking as you're getting closer to the merge and you see the other tribe kind of picking off the original WOTA members? Were you thinking at all about it, or were you just grateful to not have to go to tribal?
I mean, I felt kind of bad.
Yeah.
It was like, this is really sad. And it was at one point getting kind of boring. I was like, this is really boring because it's predictable, So I was just excited to kind of get to the merge and see if we could, start doing something and making it more exciting. Which it was, so that's good. But that's kind of what my focus was at that point, was like hoping that something would come in the future that was somewhat exciting, that made me more energized.
Yeah, and we see you're one of the few people at the merge that wasn't trying to stick Dak strong. If you could have had your pick of any of the remaining people, I think it's final 9 or final 10 at the merge, who would you have wanted to work with in a good alliance?
I don't know. I mean, I would have loved to work with, I don't know, that's the thing, is like, that was my flaw in the game, is I liked everybody. And I like, I was like, I liked everybody. I feel like I'd probably, because at the beginning of the season, you kind of saw me have my, like, I guess, qualms about Tom being the leadership role. And so at one point I was like, okay, I know that we're aligned with each other, but I do see this as potentially, like, if we did stick Dak strong, like, would be the first Dak to go. But I was thinking it was like, you know, we'd still go after Woda at one point, but I didn't know that they were going to be decimated. So I was like, oh, well, maybe we could use them for numbers. So it didn't really work out that way, because at that point it was like, it didn't really matter. So I knew that I kind of would want to align with people who had that mutual interest, maybe, of getting Tom out. And I don't think that would have been that difficult, because now that I'm thinking about it, there was other people who were on the same page. They're like, oh yeah, we definitely see Tom as a threat. And I wasn't in the loop when Tom was going home. And so that's why I was shocked, because I was like, I would have totally, like, you know, voted Tom out, but like nobody told me. So
Yeah.
And we find out in Final Tribal that you and JM know each other outside of the game. Were you able to use that relationship with them, or was it kind of just wrong place, wrong time, didn't get to connect and use that?
So it was interesting, because JM was the first person that I spoke to in the game. And
I was there for that conversation too.
And to be honest, I was a bit confused, because, you know, we're both in Survivor Specialists, like, patron group. And so I recognized their name, but not like putting a name to a face. Okay. So it was like, who is this person? Who is this person that's...
I can reenact the entire exchange. Celestina and Jay come into the well, and then Jay just goes, so we know each other from the specialists. We're in a final 2, right? Alliance, okay. And then they get pulled for a confessional, and Celestina's just like,
yeah. So that's why I was like, so I wouldn't say like we were like very, very close. Okay. We were in the same, you know, community, but I kind of used that because they wanted to be in a final 2 with me. I was like, oh, well, this is the first conversation I'm having. This is somebody who obviously wants to be in the final 2 with me. Like, that's a good thing. And then immediately, so we just got done with the like skunk challenge. And then immediately JM's like, hey, go to the well with me. And I was like, oh, okay, this is like interesting. So then we have that conversation, and then immediately we go into the breakout room, and everybody's like, okay, we're voting JM out. And I was like, oh, okay. So that's why it was like really weird for me. And so then at the end, you know, I feel like, I mean, obviously, like I know JM now. So like, you know, we have conversations and stuff too, but it wasn't at the point where we knew each other and, you know, had that type of relationship. So I just thought that was kind of interesting. But yes, we did have somewhat of a mutual connection through the Survivor Specialist.
Yeah, I had to break up. I had to break up the specialist people, because I think my thoughts with putting Bill also on your tribe, people might forget that he's a specialist because he's not as active in the comments on
I didn't know
stuff. So I had to split up mainly you, Jay, and Steven, because you guys are more active in the comments. So I'm like, I think Celestina and Steven are the most
I knew of, I would have definitely knew it, Steven. Yeah.
So I was like, let me put Celestina and Jay together, and then Steven was the odd man out.
Well, that's good to clear up, because from Final Tribal, I thought it was something, maybe a direct connection. So
yeah,
good to know.
But it was definitely a good conversation. Yeah, well, it was definitely a good conversation, because I'm like, oh wow, I didn't even have to do anything, and somebody wants to take me to the final 2. I was like, oh, okay, I didn't do anything, but okay.
Yeah, I mean, keep that around, because I could definitely tell that you were trying to keep them around because they wanted you there, but they weren't your direct alliance. I felt that you and Brett kind of took on a direct, like, this is my 2. So where did you feel like you connected with Brett? Because you were separated for a bit on the swap tribe.
Well, so with Brett, it was interesting because I kind of always like was intrigued by Brett. We weren't necessarily close, but we were on the same like tribe, and we didn't always vote together. But I always was like, okay, Brett's not really on my radar, and maybe that was my problem, that Brett wasn't on my radar at all. But I was like, oh, just a nice person that I definitely would consider working with in the future. And I think after the merge, I really started to align with him because we had a mutual interest. We needed to get Garret out. And that was the main thing. I was like, this is the only other person who I feel like is actually like about that,
Yeah.
And so I'm sure we'll talk about it more too. My like bad at math skills and also.
Oh yeah, we've got a question in here about your math.
Yeah,
so
exactly. And then, but yeah, that was and then I'll like kind of explain more about the like why like I didn't vote with Bill or vote Bill that one time.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'll explain that if that comes up.
Yeah, if you want to, we can just jump right into
well,
it.
that's actually JM's question on Facebook. Had you
Oh, okay.
realized it was final 5, would you have gone with the 3-2 split and kept Jay over Bill?
So this is the thing. I wanted Garret out, okay? And so because Garret couldn't go out that round, I believe that was the round that he had immunity, correct?
He had immunity that
Yes.
round and the following
Exactly.
round. Yeah.
Exactly. So my goal was to keep people around who were like on board with voting out Garret. And I knew that Brett definitely was, but because JM previously voted for Bill, I didn't really know what they were up to and what they were going to do next. And I know, and I didn't have a chance to have that conversation. Like maybe had I had that conversation of saying like, oh, are you interested in taking out Brett? Are you interested in not Brett, sorry. If you're interested in taking out Garret, my bad. I would have maybe, been on board, but it just was hard because, the last vote kind of scared me a little bit. I was confused by that. So
Yes.
For me, I just wanted to go with something that I felt like was more sure to get out Garret.
Yeah, that makes sense. For sure.
Yep.
Well, and then oh my gosh, sorry, I just lost my train of thought because I was listening. I was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I would feel this way. Okay, so to jump to final 4, it's really Garret wins, which is worst case scenario, right? And all of a sudden, Bill and Brett are just going at each other. And I don't know how you just sit there and you get to make the deciding factor. It's great for you,
I was
but what makes you decide to vote for Bill and not Brett?
So I was thinking in that moment again, kind of like Garret looming in the background, an omnipresent force that we can't get out. And I was just trying to see who might have the better odds at doing the wall sit, which I was really surprised. I was like, I feel like Bill and Brett would have been better at the wall sit than myself.
We just talked to Bill, and Bill said he has done a wall sit for 5+ minutes, and he won that first endurance challenge.
Exactly. So
he's ready for this reunion wall sit challenge that we've got.
I'm not participating in that, but you
don't have to.
I wouldn't either.
Oh, okay, perfect.
We have tons of contenders for this thing. You don't have to sit and watch.
Yeah. So that's why I was shocked, because I was like, if history is shown, Bill is pretty good at individual immunity challenges and endurance challenges too. So I don't know why they're if they're trying to get Garret out, why they're having me there. But I wasn't saying anything, of course. I was like, oh, nobody's saying my name, so I'm just not going to say anything. So that's why I voted out Bill. But I figured with both of them, one of them would have a better chance at beating Garret, but I just maybe thought in that moment Brett had a better chance.
Yeah. I think either way you made a good choice, because I think at face value you think, oh, okay, well, Brett has a better chance of winning. but I think either of them had a good chance. And I think Bill's a good talker. So
Yeah.
I think it was a good vote.
Yeah. And that's
either.
what another thing I was thinking about too. In the jury, I was like, oh, well, I would vote for Bill. Like, because Bill is like like everybody loves Bill, you know? And so that was another thing I was thinking about too, is like, well, in addition, like very charismatic, the soup du jour thing. I mean, you know, everybody likes that, the way he talks.
Yeah. Which is what a lot of people say about your game. You're very likable, you know? And so it was very shocking to watch your game progress, and not once did your name come up, because there were many chances where people could have been like, oh, well, Celestina was willing to work with WOTA people, or, you know, Celestina could pull in other votes that I haven't. So, I mean, it's
Yeah.
a huge remark to your game and your ability to get along with people just enough for them not to want to stab you in the back.
And also
I
to
was
create
shocked
those
too.
relationships within a few hours, because if you don't like
Mhm.
solidify the relationships in the beginning of the game, you won't necessarily have them toward the end of the game.
Mhm. Yeah, I was shocked about that too, because I was also tired. So.
Well, so we get to final tribal, right? Brett wins. Garrett's the obvious goner because he has been the underdog this entire game. What were your like 3 main points to get across at tribal? And did you think you got those and portrayed them in the way you wanted?
Yeah, I think I did. I was being a little dramatic with my like Pacific Northwest whatever stuff, but that's just because I'm a writer, so I'm like very dramatic when it comes to that. But I think that I really wanted to highlight the fact that I didn't get a vote in the game, because I think that was really important. And then also the fact that I won an immunity challenge, which was shocking because I am bad at challenges. And
I mean,
I
Lily
really wanted,
also won essentially the same
Mhm.
challenge that you did. We just altered it for a mini versus the long game.
yeah. Hey, trivia, or I guess not trivia, I don't know.
Yeah.
Questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I wanted to highlight those things. And then also I said, well, what can I kind of say? Because I didn't really have like I wasn't a comp beast or anything. So I said, well, maybe I can just highlight my social game and hope, because I figured with, you know, Brett had, you know, also a social game as well too. So I really wanted to kind of highlight like how my social game differed from his social game. And so kind of really highlighting and validating that those relationships that I made are important, and they're just as important as like all of the strategy that's happening. It's like, I may not be the most strategic person, but my kindness might matter in the end in those relationships. And I think that it really was cool to see Garret, who was like, you know what, at one point, I think like that it could have been an option to vote for me, but he was like, you know what, you were actually someone who went up to me when I was almost down and actually talked to me, you know? And so it really does, I think, matter in the end. You know, we're playing a game, but like people's emotions do get involved. And I think people forget about that, and that those relationships that you make and just connections really matter in the end. And I really kind of wanted to highlight how important that was, because I feel like that gets forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
I think we
ahead.
really should highlight your Vinny vote too, because you drove.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how much in game when we were doing it, how much you drove that vote until the edit. You were like, all right,
Yeah.
so it's Vinny and I'm not taking no for an answer.
Yeah, well, because at that point it was like things were getting a little bit boring, and I said, well, you know, of course I wanted, you know, Garret to go, but I figured it would be good to just do something a little bit different. And people were asking about names, and I wanted something there, and I said, well, what's something we can all get on board with? And I felt like the best option, not necessarily, and I felt bad because at that point Vinny wanted to work with me, and so I felt bad, but it was the only option that I felt like I could get other people on board with. And we could blame it on computer issues, but at the same time, I was trying to find something that I heard earlier and was like, oh, hey, you know, like they've played and minis before, and you know, they talk about how they always win. So I was just trying to push out something that made sense in that moment. And I also used the excuse, which I don't know if this was the best strategy, after, but like everybody, I was not in the loop with the whole Tom vote out. So at that point I was like, well, I feel like I can, it's free game now to like go against Dak because people can't get mad at me now because they didn't tell me what was happening for the Tom vote. So that was my logic that I used, and I kind of was explaining that to people. I don't know if that was the best strategy, but I did that.
I think it was a great point to show that you made a big difference in the game. But I do wonder, watching back and seeing Vinny's reaction to the answers to the questions, she seemed very upset about how she went in the game. Do you think pinpointing you as the cause of that might have lost you Vinny's vote? Or do you think it was worth it?
Perhaps, but I also wanted to show that I did have some move, because I feel like in Survivor, especially because people play these minis all the time, there's like big moves happening all the time. And I felt like the jury looked at me and they were like, well, you didn't really have any moves. So I wanted to at least be able to highlight it, even if, someone is not going to vote for me, because they have the right to not vote for me. That's their right to have emotions about that. So I knew that it was a risk, but I felt like it was important. And maybe even if Vinny didn't vote for me, maybe someone else was like, oh, well, that was a great move. I'm going to vote for you for that, because I didn't know that. I just thought it was because of internet issues,
Yeah. And I think it's really important to note that you could lose one person and then you could gain 3 votes. And all of this is kind of happening at the same time. And you're having to weigh these options as you're seeing people's reactions, which is incredibly hard. Yeah, I bombed my final tribal, so I think you did a phenomenal job at it.
Yeah, I was confused actually about so people have told me after, they were like, if your tears were like fake, I would have voted for you. But I was so confused by that, because I'm like, what? That doesn't make sense to me. But I guess
people like the strategy aspect of toying with people's emotions, but then also hate you for toying with with their emotions. It's a double-edged sword that I don't think anybody can gauge, because I feel like if you played with, say, Vinny's emotions that way, they wouldn't have voted for you in the end. But if you played with JS's emotions in that way, they would have given you the vote. So it's like you don't really know who will give you that, you got me kind of vote. And anybody, in the words of you, anybody who didn't vote for you are trifling hoes.
Oh yeah, definitely. No, and I am not capable or talented enough to like even pretend to be like sad and use that for like, it's just my natural emotion to be like empathetic and whatever. So like I'm not capable of, I can't do it even if I wanted to and tried to, but I just thought it was interesting. I was like, oh, but this is natural, this is coming from the heart.
It just depends on the jury. It really, that's all it comes down to. Like, some people love that stuff and some people hate that stuff. It just comes down to the person. But this jury in particular, you would have gotten some votes for that if you would have came out and said, yeah, those are fake tears, I was just playing you.
But I don't watch enough of this stuff, so I probably wouldn't have even known to like make that and being like, yeah, that was fake.
Yeah.
But I want to say to that jury, I think there is such a powerful ability in owning your emotions and pushing through them. You had to do that. Like, when you were upset, you had to like wipe those tears and then win the challenge and figure out who to go next. You know what I mean? So I think that's a huge point to your game that I wish the jury had recognized and appreciated more, because I definitely appreciated that. I'm an emotional player, so, and I think there's a lot more to it than backstabbing. So
yeah, if you crossed Lily, you were automatically just off her list. She just stopped talking to
you. So if you could play another org or real life survivor again from this cast, is there someone that comes to mind, and why would you pick them?
Probably people I didn't get to play with on WOTA.
Nice.
McKenna, your mom.
Yes.
That was a perfect answer.
Yes.
Robbed goddess.
Oh, you're just playing to get on another season, aren't you?
I'm retired
Oh,
indefinitely. Maybe
Oh.
never say never.
Exactly. Never say never. People come out of retirement all the time.
I know.
AKA
Sandra
Lord
Diaz
Pratt.
Twine.
Well, I just have one more question, but if we have Facebook questions.
we do. Our good buddy Stephen Bays has a really good one. Celestina, if you could change the outcome of one vote, which would it be?
James.
I was thinking the same thing.
Because that would have, like, imagine if James didn't go home that episode. I feel like
James was
the
ready to
entire
stir some
season.
shit up. He
yeah,
was
the entire season was going to be different, and it would have been exciting to kind of see. So I think that if I could change it, even if it like didn't benefit me, just because it's good TV, I would totally just be like, okay, James, you're back in, and you know,
someone.
take the wheel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we sort of touched on it, but were you scared your choices might backfire on you for that swap? Because like Brett was feeling some type of way from being detached from old Dak. So were you worried at merge that some of your choices might come to haunt you?
I really didn't think I was a threat at that point. So like I wasn't thinking about like if people were mad at my choices. I was actually shocked to see that Tom was actually more like so talked about, because they're like, why didn't he choose our, you know, our side? Because I think that's more so because we had numbers. So I don't think that they were really going to be mad at me for doing one thing one way and one thing the other way, because we had numbers. But it's in that regard, choosing which side to go to mattered more because we did have the numbers. So I think that that's why I got really lucky in the game. Like that's just really like,
hey,
I don't
luck
understand.
is part of Survivor, and if you can make that luck happen for you,
at the right time too.
Yeah, I'm like really bad at like random lottery stuff. So the fact that I survived the wheel that first time, I was like, I'm going home. I even shouted, I was like, bye everybody, it's my time. And then I was like, I'm here, what?
Yeah. Alrighty, so then Greg has a question for you. Celestina, I loved watching your journey throughout the game, and your confessionals were fire. How would you play differently if you were to play a mini again?
Well, I would definitely study up on more of the strategy aspect, because I really was lacking in that regard, and I kind of went in not really knowing and making kind of dumb decisions that I didn't really think about. I just kind of was like, oh, let me do this. Like the first round when everybody was in the room and they're like, it's JM. And I was like, well, that's kind of sucky. Why? And I didn't realize, oh, everybody else was in the room. And so I was like, well, it would have had to be one of them. So like, I wasn't thinking about stuff like that. I just was like, oh, you know, like.
You pulled a Dean. Oh, let's just split the vote.
Yeah. So it was like, oopsie. So I did a lot of those during the season. So I probably wouldn't do that next time. And then I probably would like watch more of the like, because I watched I guess like a few of the like previous seasons, but I didn't watch all of them in like to full extent. So I was like, oh, it's probably good to know what types of challenges they do. And the fact
Study
that
up, everyone. If you're gonna be on one of our games, I highly recommend watching maybe like a Jeremy's challenge be played. I don't know.
Yeah. Or like the wall sit, because everyone was like, oh yeah, it's a wall sit. And I was like, oh, I didn't know.
Yeah, only for minis though. So Ian and Morgan always have something different planned for our long games. But if you're looking to play a mini and you want to be at that final 2 or final 3, make sure your wall sit game is on point.
Yeah, don't be like me.
Well,
or
do
use that for your advantage.
Or do.
Yeah.
Speaking of Ian, he has a question for you. Celestina, it was such a joy to watch you play. I love seeing new players take on the challenges of the game. With that being said, was this experience what you expected it was going to be? What do you think you learned most about yourself during the game or after you watched it back?
Well, I learned quite a deal. First, I learned that I can actually like make it a while in the game of Survivor, because people know that Survivor is like my favorite show, and they're always like, oh, you should be on Survivor. And I said, I will never be on Survivor because I would not win, like, at all. And so, not that this is like the exact game of Survivor, but I really went in and I was like, okay, I'm on Pacific time. I'll probably just be on. I even told my boyfriend, I was like, oh, I'm only going to be on here for 3 hours. Like, it's not a big deal. Like, I'm probably going to be like the first or second person voted out. And I kind of went and was like, I mean, even if I am the first or second, I didn't really like have a sort of like, I wasn't mad about it. But then I was like, oh my gosh, I'm still here. And so by that point, I was like, oh my gosh, people are actually not voting for me. Like, I might actually have a chance at this. So I started believing in myself more, of like, oh, I can actually do this. So that was cool.
And we saw that with Bill's final vote. He was like, you started this kind of just and then you grew into yourself by the end of it, being like, you know what? I'm here at Final Tribal Council. Vote for me.
Yeah. Thank you, Bill, for voting for me. I was like, that's cool.
Yeah.
That he voted for me.
That's all of our Facebook questions, Lily.
We always like to end our exit interviews with the same question, and that is, if you could sum up your game in one word, what would it be and why?
Happenstance. I don't know. I mean, can we use that? I don't know. Yeah, like very lucky, just because there was a lot of moments that I feel like it could have been me, but it wasn't, just because of another circumstance.
Happened.
So yeah, I mean, it was great. I mean, that whole dice thing, I was like, I even told my boyfriend, I was like, I'm going home. So I was like shocked that we won that, and was like, we got really lucky with that one. So
yeah. Well, thank you for playing this game and joining our little community here at DCP. We all enjoyed watching you play. Lauren, finish us out.
Yeah, as McKenna said, Celestina, thanks again for playing. I do hope to see you sometime in the future. I know you said probably retired, but then again, everyone says
never
that
say
they
never.
like to come back. So never say never. But yes, everyone else, be sure to follow everything we have going on at Dynamic Character Productions. Be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and check everything out that we have going on the Facebook page, because let me tell you, there is a ton of content, and go back and watch the previous stuff. It's great. It's wild. Lily and I were on a season together. We were against each other. Spoiler alert. But Celestina, did you know that?
No, I watched half of the season.
Okay, well, you didn't get to the point where we were against each other. But again, yes, be sure to check everything that we have going on our page. Once again, I'm one of the hosts, Lauren, along with my co-host, McKenna. Always, Lily, thank you. Celestina, once again, it was a pleasure. Good night.
Good night.